Hello and welcome to another episode of the Synapse e-learning series. Today we will be discussing quite a sensitive topic. We'll be discussing deceased organ donation and the psychosocial and ethical considerations when tackling such an issue. In fact, with us today we have Mrs. Sharon Abela, who is one of the main coordinators of a campaign called Life After Drew. Thank you, Mrs. Abela, for being with us here today. If you can further elaborate about your particular experience.
Okay, so just over a year and 9 months ago, in June of 2016, we lost our son, a 20-year-old, and we in hospital, and we were asked if we would like to donate his organs. Since then, we have felt the need immediately to do something in his name, and organ donation and awareness with regard to organ donation and support came to mind, and we started working on this campaign, which we should be launching soon, which we named Life After Drew, because Drew was a beautiful young man, and there still is life after Drew. It's a different life after Drew, both for us and both for himself, but to the recipients who received all his organs, there is a second chance in life, which is another type of life.
Exactly, and without disclosing any sensitive information, which you should not feel compelled to do, but can you tell us about some of the positive and negative aspects of this horrible experience, the loss of your child?
Obviously, it is a very tragic experience, and it's possibly our own experience, which we've passed through, prompted us to think of how we could make this difficult journey easier to others like us who might unfortunately be faced with this tragedy. So one of the things which after we realized that there needs to be done, support to the families of the deceased donors, because obviously in my case we're talking about a deceased donor, because there are other donations, such as living donors who are giving a kidney perhaps, or other tissues which can fall under the living, but in our case it's the families of the deceased donors. So we would like to create more awareness, and the campaign tackles the idea of how immediately support could be given to the families, even on the onset of the difficulty, such as during outside the ITU, and how psychologically the person needs a lot of help, and also a follow-up after to see how well the person is coping, such as a mother and a father and the immediate family cope with this particular loss. On the other hand as well, we wanted to raise awareness on more registrations, and luckily the government has now passed a bill, and it's in force, and the registration now is more efficiently done, and it's more binding. So we are bringing this more to the fore to the public.
And I commend your effort in this regard, because obviously it is a very sensitive and personal issue. And obviously I understand that in your particular situation, tragedy struck unexpectedly.
Yes.
So your 20-year-old son had to be hospitalized immediately, yes. And you were confronted with a decision which was technically an end-of-life decision, which you had to make, yes. In order to allow for all his organs, all potentially viable, yes. organs to be donated. And at that moment, obviously, you needed support in terms of a crisis situation.
Yes.
But you're also advocating for support after the
yes.
tragedy and
yes.
the transplant has occurred. Do you see that in Malta this is a challenge which needs to be addressed?
Yes, I feel that although we found a lot of help straight after and even right up until this day, obviously there needs to be a mechanism which is woven into the fiber of the government health department, where the support is given, because sometimes you don't even realize that you need that support. Sometimes, you know, you just wake up with all these questions, all these, as a lay person, you do not know many technicalities when it comes to what does it mean that you are clinically dead? Mm-hmm. What does it mean to actually
bring death?
So you have to learn a lot, and learning many things on your own might pose difficulties, exactly, especially if you come to the wrong conclusions.
At the same time, it wasn't actually an ideal moment for you to learn about these things.
So you have to grieve. You have to, you know, try to struggle to continue with the rest of your life, and also try to understand what is going on medically as well. I mean, for some might think that sort of there are so many registrations, so it's a good thing people are registering, which is excellent. But having the right peace of mind, not just after you registered and you've accepted, but after you actually given that consent to a loved one, needs further attention, in my opinion, so that everything will continue running. Not just smoothly, but for the sanity of the person, the individual involved, that you have peace of mind and you are more comfortable with the decision that you have made.
And I would like to clarify, for the sake of our audience, both Mrs. Abela here and her husband had registered.
Yes,
we
had been registered for years, 90, straight after we got married, I think.
And do you believe that culture, this empathic culture, that even after that you donate something, had passed on to your son as well?
Yes, yes.
And so when you decided on his behalf, you took this decision in that spirit.
Yes, yes. Drew had not yet registered, not even his sister or daughter, but as soon, I mean, growing up, they were both nurtured into a very altruistic environment, so it was automatic for them to come up. It would have been automatic for Drew to accept something like this.
And obviously, as we've already discussed, I mean, in that situation, you're compelled with these decisions, and you have to make a decision at that moment in time.
In fact, yes. I think one thing that I've experienced myself is that almost before they actually told me asked me whether we would like to donate, it was natural for me to suggest it, because it's the obvious choice.
So in that moment, you were the proactive, both you and your husband, and you suggested it
before they had... Because we truly believe in giving others a second chance in life.
And you made the best out of a tragedy.
A tragedy, yes.
And in so doing, you're also trying to make the best now from a public awareness front.
Yes.
And I want maybe to...
Okay, so the campaign was initially prompted in order to raise awareness, obviously prompt more registrations, and finally provide support and education, because registering by itself is not enough. It's only the beginning. So educating the public, giving the information that is required out there for the younger generation especially, to grow up with the idea of listen, this is giving someone a better chance in life. It's not just a second chance, but a better quality of living, and the idea that there needs to be support. And it's like the social humanitarian aspect of it. People need to support each other. So not only giving a better quality of life, but giving support to recipients, because they go through a very difficult transition. Exactly. The body can reject the organ. So there needs to be a lot of awareness, especially not just medical, but even on a social level. Like people need to be aware of the sensitivity of the subject, how to approach a person. So education needs to be given out there to the public, different ways of going about it. So it could be education from a medical point of view, from a psychological point of view, from a social altruistic point of view. So this could be done from the different walks of life, beginning from the ITU itself, continuing after into the homes, and also in social places as well.
And I understand that your campaign will span at least a month.
About a month, yes.
And it will include media awareness initiatives.
Yes.
Will you be appearing in different platforms? What will be your role?
So our role is, this is part of, because I need to explain this as well. So this is part of an NGO organization. It's part of the transplant support group in Malta, and it is under the patronage of Her Excellency, the President of Malta, and through the Malta Community Chest Fund. We were awarded a humble sum, and it is going to go towards this particular
initiative
campaign.
And from your perspective, we are obviously discussing a sensitive case, a personal case of a deceased donor.
Yes.
Obviously, there are also live donors.
Yes.
And I understand that the association, the group which you mentioned, Transplant
Yes.
Support Group, also deals with such cases
Yes.
here locally. Will your campaign also span and inform the public about these eventualities?
Yeah.
Elaborate a bit more, since we have some time, on Life After Drew. What is it as a campaign? What does it involve?
Definitely. So our campaign would be focusing on donors and recipients. It will be focusing on the different kinds of donations, how to register, what happens when you register, some details. Obviously, we are working very closely with the health department, the local health department. So there's a lot of coordination going on between the different entities. And our main aim is to improve and add to the register. Obviously, now, since the bill has passed, people who had already registered now need to re-register, because there is a misconception. Many say, I have the old card, do I need to re-register? Yes, because this is a different system, and it's binding, legally binding. The other system is still in place, but it is not as legally binding as the other one. So I encourage everyone, even if you have the old card, please do register afresh, because it will obviously make the difference. And the whole idea is to show that there is hope in life, there is satisfaction in helping others and in contributing in helping others. And whenever such a tragedy strikes, you need to find support, not just through your friends, but also through the person himself or herself, obviously the person who is lost, who is generating that energy. And in our case, we channeled our energy in this giving event.
It is part of our ethos as the Synapse editorial board to not just focus on e-learning with regards to technical and medical knowledge, but also on the social and psychosocial perspective of the issues at hand. And our aim with airing this particular episode is to actually give an open platform for such experiences to help us in our formative professional role as physicians or healthcare workers. And to conclude our brief discussion, Mrs. Abel, I would like to ask you, what go-home messages would you like to convey to our audience, which is mostly medically oriented, on how to deal with such delicate issues such as end-of-life organ donation?
Okay, so a very big question. Obviously, there are two different issues at stake at this point. The grieving process, irrespective of whether you donate or not, and obviously that is a very personal thing, and everyone has their own way of tackling it. But the grieving process, in addition to organ donation, is in my opinion, prompted by a sense of altruism. So I think that the more we have this idea of meaningfulness of life and passing it on to others, giving this sense of sharing and love, I think it's the best thing that anyone could hope for, and it's truly a way of remembering our loved ones who have passed. So be altruistic.
On that note, I thank you for being with us here today. I know it's not easy to speak about such a circumstance, but we commend your initiative, and we hope that through this interview we will help you reach a wider public exposure. I thank our audience for being with us here today. I hope that through this interview we have managed to further elucidate your knowledge on the intricacies related to organ donation, and we encourage you to follow us on the Synapse Facebook page. Thank you.